In this GlassTrax training video, I will be covering how to batch export to an optimization software. The first thing you need to do is come to your feature initialization, which is found in Miscellaneous, Setup Miscellaneous, Feature Initialization. The feature number you're looking for is 2763. Now, as you can see here, we work with a number of different optimization programs, including OptiWay, PMC, Bilco, Lysic, Aculite, WinIG, Perfect Cut, A&W, and Easy Cut. We're always adding to this list, so if you have a different software out there that is willing to work with us, we are more than willing to work with them. We just need to know what they need from us. Most of our customers are on OptiWay. It's a very common solution. I like their shape library. It's clean. It's an easy export-import process. So what you're going to do is select the right software that you're using, and then review some of the other information in here. Now, you don't have to worry about a lot of information in here. There's a lot of extras that you may not be using. But you do want to check the correct software, and then over here you do want to check to make sure that the bridge file units are going out in inches or millimeters, whatever your preference is. And then the one label per, I have mine set to one label per piece. The other options are per line, per light, or per air spacer. Now per light, that basically means per layer. So if I'm building IG units, if I set that out and I'm doing a 1/8 inch clear tempered over 1/8 inch clear tempered, it would print one label for the outside clear 1/8 inch clear tempered and another label for the inside 1/8 inch clear tempered. But I'm going to keep mine at piece. The last field you need to worry about is the export path. Right now I have mine set to the CGT files folder. I would recommend putting it somewhere else. Put that on a shared network drive so that your computer out on the floor next to the cutting table will be able to access any files that you export. So make sure that that is going to a place that you can access from that cutting table. Once you've made all your selections in here, you go ahead and hit save, and you're ready to start cutting. So what you need to do now is come into Sales, Processing, and Process Batches 4. We do have some other options for process batches. This is just by far the most detailed version. It gives you the most capability, the most power, and in fact, it's the only one we really train on now because everyone likes to use this one. So in this screen, some people get a little overwhelmed when they first see it because there are so many filter options. But what it comes down to is you got to think about your process. You got to think, well, how do I create batches for cutting? Or if I don't create batches for cutting, how would I like to do that logically? So I'm going to come click here on this drop down menu. It's the one to the right, and you can see all these different filter options that we've got. I can do it by a specific item, customer, ship date. Now I can go ahead and say everything that's supposed to go out in the next week and type in my date range there. I can come down and say everything that needs a spacer or a particular spacer. We can say it's the aluminum spacer, everything that needs a super spacer. You go ahead and filter that way. You can also come down here and look at these different filters. Now, the options here, for example, for backordered are all, include, or exclude. That's a little misleading with include because really what it's going to do is if you set it to include and you filter everything out, it's only going to show you orders that have a backorder quantity on them. So most people will leave that to either all or exclude if you do not want to see any backordered orders. For example, I do have closed set to exclude and batched set to exclude. And the reason behind that is because if an order is closed, that means it's been invoiced. I don't want to see it in this list. If it's already been batched or it's been sent out previously, I don't want to see it, which is why I have that set to exclude as well. If you only want to see tempered glass, you would set this to include. Now that means glass that obviously needs to be tempered further down the line. The other option down here that a lot of people use is this thickness. You can come in and say, hey, I'm going to cut all my 3/8 inch thick glass. If I leave it as is, it will bring in all my glass that's 3/8 inch thick. It doesn't matter if it's, if it's rain, if it's clear, if it's tempered, if it's bronze, whatever, it's going to bring it in by thickness. Now, I'm going to keep this all set to blank and all. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to call this blank filter. If you notice up here at the top, you can give your filters names. And what I do is when I save that by clicking this blue pin right here, it saves it into the drop-down menu. So now I have a blank filter option. Now you can see my other options. I have a 1/4 inch clear or 1/4 inch tempered, a 3/8 inch clear temper or 3/8 clear filter, and then I have a next week ship filter as well. So you don't have to come in and redefine those filters every single time you come into the screen. You can set your preferences and pull from the drop-down menu here. So I'm going to go ahead and say that blank filter, and then I'm going to go up here and click this N button for new. And what it's going to do is it's going to pull in all sales orders that fit that filter. So in this case, I have about 300. Now, notice that even with 300 lines, which hopefully your filters are a little more specific than that, it's still quite fast. We're already over 1/4 of the way there, and it's going to bring this in. Now, the reason it is taking this time to load it in is because we're pulling in not just the glass information for these sales orders. we are pulling in a ton of information that we can export to your cutting tables. So for example, you'll see here in just a moment, we pull in the status of the order, whether it's a buyout or invoice. Most people exclude buyouts, by the way, on the filter. You can see the delivery date, the day it was ordered, the sales order in the line, who it's going to, the customer's PO. You can see the quantity pieces, the width in millimeters or in inches, height in millimeters or inches. You can see an overall thickness. If you keep going, you can see processes. You can see all the total square footage. All this information, the weight, we can send that out to your cutting table. So the reason we have this in here is because a lot of optimization softwares give you the ability to build your own label. For example, I'm using OptiWay exports right now. They have the ability to build their own label from the cutting table. Now, we do have the ability to print labels from GlassTrax, which is very handy. But some people like to print it out right there at the cutting table using their optimization software so that they can match the sticker or the label to the glass as it's being cut. Even some of the newer tables are really fancy. They actually have a print head on the cutting table, and it'll actually print and stick the labels as it's cutting the glass for you, so you don't have to figure out which piece of glass belongs to which label. So what you're going to do when that filter brings it in is you can review if you really want to, and make sure you pick and choose which ones you want to send to your export or send to your cutting table. I'm going to go ahead and do these right here, just these 5. Now you saw I just double clicked on those. Now if your filter is good enough, hopefully you could just come down here to the bottom and say include all, and it'll highlight all of them and you can send out to your cutting table. The other option you have is you can come down here and you can click these 3, click and drag. I can right click and say include, not include all, include. It'll just do the 3 that I've highlighted. And so now I've got 8 lines going out. They've changed color. The other colors, just for your information, you can see they're related to the status. If I click that color wheel, it tells you what those colors are. So I'm going to go ahead and say, let's come and review this batch here. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the save button up here in the top. So as I save, it's going to say, hey, there are 8 lines in this. Do you want to save? Yes. So it's going to go ahead and pull in just these 8 lines. So this is what I selected. Now, if you notice, I click on here, you'll see the shapes. Most of these are rectangles, but there is a curved edge piece right there. Here's an oval. These are shapes that are tied to OptiWay already. So we do have a number of shape libraries already built into GlassTrax. Each optimization software usually has their own. And so we just send out the shape number that they're used to, and then the coordinating measurements here as well. So when you've reviewed your batch and everything looks good, you can come down to export data. What this will do is it will launch your file explorer and ask you, it'll go to that file, that location that you defined in that feature 2763, and it will export in the correct format. The other things that you can do down here is you can print a report, which will basically give you this information in a nice printed report of what's going on in this batch. Glass labels as well. If you do not print labels from your optimization software, you can print a group of labels just for this batch right from this screen by clicking the glass labels right here. Otherwise, you would just come to this export data. It's going to pop up here, and notice it is in an Optima ASCII format, and it's going to where I told it to, which was the CGT files in my case. And again, please don't do that because you won't be able to access that from your cutting table. So notice it goes out in this ASCII format, and all you have to do now from your optimization software is find where you can import in these files and pull this file in, and it should pull in all the information from this batch, and you're ready to start cutting. This is a great feature from GlassTrax. I highly recommend that if you do have an optimization software to use it with GlassTrax. It'll save you a lot of time. It'll save you from making errors with double entry. It'll increase your production, and it'll save you a ton of money.